Hello, welcome to the Sideboard at the StarCityGames.com Standard Open in Knoxville, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Team Metagame Guru's own Danny Jessup. How you doing?
Good so far.
You've brought a spicy one to the table here. You're in the hunt for the Players' Championship, kind of on the outside looking in, but You have this event and the Invitational still left. Try to join the rest of your teammates in the PC.
Yeah, it certainly need a big finish, so we took a little risk on this one for sure.
But we're playing like a mono-white Eldrazi kind of mid-range deck, I guess. I wouldn't call it Eldrazi because you don't have a ton of Eldrazi.
Yeah.
But you definitely have the Eldrazi theme with a lot of the choices you're opting for in this deck.
Yep. Yeah, the colorless cards are pretty powerful. In particular, Spatial Contortion was a card I kind of wanted to play this tournament as it's just a great removal spell in the format at the moment. So didn't think a 2-color deck with a colorless splash was really doable. So kind of just back to mono white.
Right, and we saw this kind of like big white build back at the season 1 or 2 Invitational when people were trying this out with, Eldrazi Displacer and Avacyn, plus all the other value cards.
Yeah, I also tried it at the Open in Baltimore the week after Selfless Spirit set it released to beat up Bant Company, and it did just that. I did very well versus Bant Company up until the last round, but that deck was great, so.
Yeah, so we get to do all the fun Displacer things with your deck, of course, as low as Thraben Inspector to generate clues, but as high as Archangel Avacyn to just kind of generate massive advantage.
Yep, between the interaction of just making it so they can't really attack, or the sack your Selfless Spirit to flip your Avacyn, let the Avacyn flip, and then blink back the Displacer to have your guys be indestructible, wrath their board, keep your guys alive. It's a very good 3-card combo, and even just the 2 of them are great by themselves. So,
right. And one thing those decks back in the day didn't have was Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah.
Premier 2-drop of choice here in the format now, and you have a bunch of creatures that can crew it and kind of work alongside it.
Yep. Yeah. The Copter fits a weird role in this deck. You kind of end up on a control game a lot, but you do just have very aggressive draws of turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2 Copter, turn 3, 3-drop, turn 4 Gideon, and they just die. So it's a card that's just incredible. It plays both the defensive and offensive roles incredibly, so there's no reason not to include it in a deck that can crew it very easily.
Right, and one of the 3-drops is Thalia. We haven't seen a ton of play. It's starting to pop up as a 1 or 2 of in the kind of the blue-white decks.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty good here with the power that you can kind of leverage an aggressive start as well.
Yeah, exactly. The curve of Thopter into Gideon. It's also one of your best cards versus green-black as a way to deal with Ishkana. So the turn it comes in, you can still get pressure on them because that is your rough matchup with the way I have the deck constructed at the moment. So having a little bit of edge in that one. Also, it's really nice versus blue-white because it's good versus Avacyn. They can't just flash in, block your guy. So Thalia has been very impressive. Unfortunately, there's not so many non-basic lands floating around because both the good decks play like 15 basics each, but it certainly gets them sometimes. Like if they just can't Prairie Stream for their 4th land untapped, play a Gideon, it's just backbreaking. So.
Yeah. And of course, you have Premier Enchantment removal between Stasis Snare and Quarantine Field is kind of your other removal to go alongside Spatial Contortion here, which kind of handles all the early stuff in the format.
Yeah, Spatial Contortion's excellent versus blue-white. It kills every creature in the deck that's not Avacyn. The Stasis Snares are necessary for Avacyn, and Spatial Contortion is even great versus green-black because a lot of times their best draws involve playing a Grimflayer, which blue-white struggles pretty heavily against on the draw, where if you just play your second land, kill their guy, they rely on that to find their Delirium to get their engine starting. So if you can deal with Grimflayer early, I found, it makes the matchup much better for you. Still not great, but still much better. And then the Quarantine Field was a last-minute addition over the 4th Stasis Snare, as it's a great perfect main deck 1-of card, because nobody's really playing ways to kill enchantments in the main deck. They'll board in a bunch of natural states and fragmentize the post board, so you always side it out. But having an answer to like multiple permanents if you're on 6 or 8 mana, which this deck does a lot because you draw a bunch of cards with inspectors, you can go long, and also it answers their enchantments, which most people don't have answers to enchantments. So like they have 2 Stasis Snares on your 2 guys, you just get both your guys back, and it's very good for you. So
right, the deck looks very similar to the white-blue Flash deck, except you just kind of cut Reflector Mage, Spell Queller for like the Displacer engine along with some of the colorless cards.
Exactly, yeah. So the Displacer, I wanted this deck to be very good versus blue-white, and in my testing it's been very good versus blue-white. Reflector Mage is kind of mediocre in the blue-white mirror, and Spell Queller's fine. But my deck, particularly against Spell Queller, I have more removal spells with Contortion, and you also have the great interaction of Displacer versus Spell Queller, which if you play an early spell, you get it Spell Quellered. Later in the game, you have 6 mana, you pay your 3, you play your Displacer, say go. They'll play a spell, you displace their Spell Queller, you get your spell back, they have to counter their own spell. So it's just incredible versus that card.
Yeah, that blowout is always fun and has been around since Spell Queller and Eldrazi Displacer start seeing play alongside each other, or against each other, I guess I'd say. Your colorless sources here, you got Evolving Wilds for Waste, Aether Hub, but also you get to play West Valley, a card that's kind of been dipping in playability lately, but you kind of need it with the sideboard we'll talk about here in a moment.
Yeah, between being able to make sure you cast Contortion on 2, it's also actually just been incredibly impressive. I went up to 3 for this tournament because a lot of times, like I said, you kind of go late with this deck, so just making 1/1s is fine. And other than blue-white, which has Reflector Mage and Stasis Snare, green-black doesn't have an answer to Ormidal. Like, they have real removal spells and it's indestructible, so if you can flip Ormidal pretty early against them, it's actually a very good way to do it. Or they just sit there and chump for a million turns with Ishkanaz, you fight through that, and you just gain a bunch of life, and you can eventually take the game over with a Displacer. So.
But you get to enable the sideboard package of more Eldrazi. So on top of, Reality Smasher, the all-star favorite, and then you have Matter Reshaper as kind of more value.
Yeah, so against the green-black matchup in particular, those 2 cards shine. Reality Smasher, their best removal spells, Grasp, doesn't deal with it. They'll play, most lists are generally playing 1 to 2 murders, and even that comes with a cost. The only card that's particularly great against it, which has happened to me once today, was it got Noxious Gear Hulked. That kind of felt bad, but other than that, it's a card that attacks their Lilianas very well and attacks right through Grimflare and Mindrack Demon. So if you're playing this removal game with them post-board, you can keep them to 1 creature, your Reality Smasher is generally just going to kill them. I wish there was more space in the sideboard for the other main deck card, the Council Flagship, which was also been incredible for me, and the interaction between it and Eldrazi Displacer has been very good. You could just crew it up, attack, deal 3 to Planeswalker creature. It hits them. Then you can blink it while it's still a creature, deal another 3 damage. And even when it's tapped, you can then, if you have a few more creatures lying around, just crew it again, just while it's tapped,
just
blink
machine
it.
gun
And you
everything
just,
down.
exactly. With 9, 8 to, anywhere from 6 to 9 mana, you just get 2 to 3 activations with it, and it's just backbreaking.
Bunch of removal here. The rest of your sideboard: Declaration Stone, Blessed, Alliance, and Fragmentize, and then you got a Linvala here just kind of topping it off.
Yeah, it's just a big good card for any kind of particularly good versus blue-white, as it's just 2 flying blockers if you're ever behind. Same thing, it's another card that's great with Displacer if you're ever behind it all. It's one of your ways you could win a match where if you just kind of flat out a little bit or a little bit behind on the board, cast it, make a 3/3, gain 5. You probably won't make another 3/3, but if you gain another 5 life by blinking it, it's just the value is unreal there.
Now, one thing I got to ask, you've got the Eldrazi here, but there's no Thought Knots here. Is that on purpose?
The thing about Thought Knot is it's not very good versus green-black because their main removal spell, like I said, is Grasp. So they can kind of kill it 1 for 1. If you can cast it exactly the turn to snipe an Ishkanah, it's okay. It's only okay versus blue-white. It gets Quellered. They have some removal spells for it. It gets Reflector Mage. The only matchup that I would really want it in is the new red-green Aetherworks Marvel deck that's been popping up. But that matchup's kind of a lost cause anyway, because I cut the blue counter spells, which make the blue-eye deck so good versus it. So I've kind of given that matchup. This build is definitely way worse if you're expecting that deck to be a thing. But I was expecting the 2 decks to just be blue-white and green-black like everyone else. I targeted blue-white heavily and gave myself a shot post-board versus green-black.
Okay. Well, the deck looks cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice little breath of fresh air in this format. So thanks for sharing it with me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Knoxville.